We all are leaders, and just realize you're a leader. You don't have a title, but you lead. If you're a receptionist, if you are a truck driver, you lead your area, you lead your family, you can lead in the community. Really, to bring these ideas of basic leadership, talking about being open in communication, and then the belief that you are a leader and you lead yourself first.
Hello. Welcome to another knowledge bomb episode of Lead to Greatness. Well, we believe in helping others reach their greatest potential and together change the world. Today on Lead to Greatness, we have Tim Lupinacci. If this is your first time joining us, please consider subscribing and hit that notification bell and hit that like button. This will be greatly appreciated in helping getting out this content to great leaders and great individuals like yourself. Tim is the CEO of Baker Donelson law firm. Tim has over 3 decades of leadership experience. He also just launched a nonprofit organization called Everybody Leads, which focuses on empowering individuals in underserved communities with basic leadership skills and confidence to better lead themselves, lead others, and lead their communities. Please help me welcome Tim with Leading Yourself First. This is Cedric Francis, and you're listening to Lead to Greatness.
A student of leadership my whole life. Once I realized with a mentor who told me this, that I was a leader and that I could get better as a leader. And so I've really been focused on trying to get better as a leader and helping others to accomplish their potential. So it's a lot of what I've been doing.
Wow. I want to talk about that because you said you realized you were a leader early on. Like what age was this and how did that go?
Yeah, it actually started out of a pretty big mistake I had made. I'd been out of law school about a year, and I did not have any lawyers in my family. I didn't know the legal profession. So I was just literally working through trying to figure out what does it mean to be a lawyer. And it was very transactional to me. I would get a project, I would do it, I would turn it in, and then I'd go to the next project. Okay. And I was doing a lot of, I was working on a team that did bankruptcy work, helping companies restructure. And we had a big financial project due about trying to figure out how much debt this company had and how many creditors. And so our boss assigned me and then a lawyer who had about 6 or 7 years experience to the project. We worked on it a while. I'm doing it, very transactional. I handed it in to the mid-level lawyer who then turned it into our boss. Didn't think anything of it. Next thing I knew, we're getting paged to go to the boss's office. We walk in, he's on a conference call with a dozen lawyers all around the country, getting ready for a hearing the next day. And he just blows up at us, saying that we'd made a big mistake, and then telling all the lawyers, yelling at us, the lawyers on the phone. He said, these idiots are going to stay here all night to get this done. And then told us to go on our way. So we got it all fixed. We realized what we had done, turned it in, and overnight got it done. But I had the short straw that I had to pick up the boss to drive to court the next morning. And I thought, this is not going to be well. I'm worried. Am I going to have a career, a job? And to his credit, and he did ultimately, he was a pretty gruff guy, but he ultimately, smoothed out around the edges. But first thing he did was he apologized, and he apologized for yelling at us in front of other people. He said that was unacceptable. But he said, the reason I got so mad, Tim, is because I see a lot of potential in you. You really are a leader. And I believe in you, and I'm just disappointed about this. And here I was thinking, well, it was the mid-level lawyer's job. I'm just a young guy. I didn't know what I was doing. Wow. But yet he was instilling in me, I needed to own the project, not just turn it in, but really make sure everything was done well. And I guess that really was the first time it clicked in me that I could be a leader and that I was a leader and I had to get better at it. So.
Wow. That's amazing. So where did your leadership journey go from there? That very moment when you realized it wasn't an instant grabbing you some John C. Maxwell books, some Zig Ziglar and so on and so forth. What happened after that?
Well, you actually said it. John C. Maxwell, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I got to figure this out. And like I said, I hadn't really had a lot of examples. I mean, I realized that in the hindsight, I did have examples, but I didn't really know what a leader looked like. And so I started reading and just doing that. And then, of course, once you follow and do some John Maxwell materials, he's always talking about reading every day. And, if you find a book you like, buy 5 copies and give them away. So I literally just was doing that. I like to call in my car, I made it like a mobile MBA. Like while I was driving, I would listen. At the time, there weren't podcasts, but, books on CDs or, things like that, just to continue to fill my mind about how could I get better, and just learning, going to some leadership conferences. And then ultimately, as I had the opportunity to have a young lawyer work for me after I'd been practicing a while, and then a paralegal, and then the team grew, I started having very intentionally trying to pour into them that concept that everybody's a leader, and then helping them to grow and equip them to step up. So that's some of that early journey in doing that.
Amazing. You talked about the young lawyer that was working with you. Do you have a story of a leadership challenge that you faced, and how did you overcome it?
Well, particularly when I was now leading others, I think some of the biggest challenges have been others who really didn't have buy-in to the vision or what the team was trying to accomplish, or maybe weren't giving their all. I guess a little bit like I saw myself in them, like I was just being more transactional. It's hard. It's still hard to this day about having those hard discussions about giving feedback. But I really spent a lot of time trying to understand the individual, the young lawyer in that case, understand what was their ambition, what were they trying to drive at. It may not be the same thing I wanted to do. And I think then really setting some clearer expectations. I probably had not done a good job of setting the expectations of what we needed to do to best serve the client. So it really began this journey, which I still continue today, about just the critical importance of relationship, talking about being open in communication. And then I tell you, I think it's hard that we want to not necessarily address the difficult issue, and then it gets even worse as you don't do it. So trying to be more intentional about that. But that was some things I did early on.
I always, with coaching and in leadership or whatever, I always tell people, never put yourself in a position where you have to apologize. What's your thought on that statement? And do you have any similar methods, any similar philosophies that you go by in your leadership model?
I do agree with that philosophy about, really working hard to be disciplined, not to cross a line, to do something that then I would apologize for. Like a similar concept is when I do make mistakes, not initially in that kind of, I need to be the first one to apologize and say, I realize it and I own it. But as far as getting in that position where I'm crossing the line, and I'll give you a recent example. I had crossed the line in the sense of I just got frustrated, and it was because I have all the excuses why I wasn't feeling well, I hadn't slept well, but that's unacceptable for the leader, right? And so I had to go back and apologize to them. But some of the things I do to try to prevent that are, I like to call it my daily disciplines. I try to have every morning have some reading, try to get out and run a couple miles. I'm real slow, but I just like being outdoors in nature and having some thought and meditation and prayer time, eating well, sleeping well, and really just trying to look at folks. There's a little phrase I use about, looking at folks, trying to lead with compassion and kindness and humility, and being even tempered. And some of that, I remind myself about that every morning. It doesn't mean I don't violate it, but when I'm looking at for the best in the other person, even if it's something that they're really aggravating me about, I think it helps me to avoid that ledge of, creating a situation where I then have to apologize. So I don't know. I love what you said, and I think you're exactly right about that we have to focus on it.
I think that is really great and great information for us leaders, because oftentimes I believe we move so fast. We have a lot of things going. There's pressures, there's deadlines, and that's all these things that's going on. And before you know it, you can literally snap if you're not getting yourself and keeping that tank full in the beginning of the process. So thank you. I want to talk about, before you can lead anyone else, the first person you have to lead is yourself.
Right.
And I want you to explain to us, why is leadership so important to you? Why do you put so much effort into leadership? Why do you put so much effort into learning? Why you spend so much effort into developing to becoming a constant better and better person every day? You said 32 years. 32 years, that's someone say, man, you know what? 32 years, you should have leadership all figured out. But here you are saying you're still growing. I want you to talk to us about that.
Yes, well, I'm a firm believer that we all can get better every day, no matter where you are. I haven't got it all figured out. I've learned from a lot of mistakes and through a lot of growth, but I'm still learning every day. So, and I really want to help others along the way. I've seen others who have helped me. I think to whom much is given, much is required.
Yeah.
And so I've been very, blessed and fortunate in my life, in my profession, in my career, beyond anything I could have ever imagined. So I just want to take what has been given and try to help others, not to do what I've done, because they've got their own journey, they've got their own ambitions. I would say, I guess about a decade ago, I came across a book. An author named Darren Hardy did a book called "Leading Your Best Year Ever." And it's really like a workbook that you work through, and that really gave me a good guide, like a framework that you're talking about, and it worked me through a series of questions. Really thinking about how am I doing in my family and in my family relationships?
Yeah.
How am I doing in my health and exercise, and how am I eating? How am I doing in my career? Am I overworking myself? Am I setting goals and trying to accomplish different things? Is it a job that brings me joy, or do I need to think about something else? Just those deep questions about career. Although I mentioned family, I think relationships was another category. Is it my work or my community relationships, that I need to think about? That faith, or your spiritual journey, whatever that looks like for you, but are you being, having that time of inspiration and building your faith? And then I think it was another one was like community. Like, are you investing in your community? Are you building those type of close relationships? So I think, as I recall, that was the framework, but I used that for several years. And I think that just now is so intuitive that as I come to the end of a year, I very much use that last couple of weeks of a calendar year, because I know there's nothing magic about calendar year, but it does help me to like look back on the prior year. What travels did I do? Like, what meetings did I have? Things that may have not gone where I wanted them to. And it helps me then think. And also, I keep a journal too when I'm writing in the morning, like things that have spoken to me during the year that I need to work over. And then I kind of compile that into, okay, this year ahead, what am I going to really focus on? So that's a framework I use.
Tim, those are a load of knowledge bombs. Thank you. This is really, really, really good, because oftentimes as leaders, we miss this. Miss this. We're successful in our career, but we wind up going through a divorce, or we're successful in our career and our children in rehab because we're not there. We're not present in all these different areas. So Tim, thank you. Thank you for this. This is really going to help us. This is really going to help us really have something to think about and begin to not just focusing on one category of success, but focusing on a broad spectrum of what success really is.
I agree. I totally, Cedric, and you hit the nail on the head about all of it. And when you talked about that, because you're exactly right. It's all of the above. And you've mentioned it earlier. I mean, it's up to us to lead ourselves, and hopefully everyone who's listening has a confidant that they can have a safe space to talk about stuff. But no one maybe you don't, and so nobody's going to be looking after you unless you are doing it. One other piece, I guess, that ties into that too, and it's not going to work for everyone, but I have found value in having like a coach, a leadership coach. That helps. Like one of the things I've really struggled with the last couple of years in leading a big organization is prioritization, because I just want to help everyone. I have a hard time saying no, and so I just want to, and to some extent, I've got an obligation to lead the organization. So there's some things I probably do need to delegate or let others do, and so he's really helped me to build some framework about some of the things like that. Like, this year, Tim, let's really get serious about prioritization, and making sure it's driving your most valuable priorities, and you're doing that. So anyway, but I do think a coach or a confidant, certainly a counselor, could help in some of those areas on mental health or wellness. I think that's very valuable. I've done some of that too, because it just helps keep you grounded. So.
Wow, Tim, that's another knowledge Bob, you said something, and I have to, because you mentioned about leading the organization. And when you lead the organization, you also have to lead the people within the organization. So that's different facets within leading the organization, and the profits, the product, the people. I want to what some things we can do for us leaders, CEOs, to create that culture of that leadership and leading balance throughout the organization, whether leading up or leading down?
Yeah, that's a great question, Cedric, and I really appreciate it. So, Baker Donelson is the law firm that I lead. It's really a full service law firm. Really, our mission is to try to become trusted advisors to each of our clients to really understand their business, their industry, and help them achieve their strategic priorities. And again, I know I talked earlier about like the transactional of doing a project. We certainly are here to help a client in one particular manner, but we really I think we bring the most value is trying to help with the longer term, like a portfolio of opportunities for them and help drive that. And as I said, we stretch out over the Southeast Mid-Atlantic. Some of our top areas are healthcare, financial services, certainly corporate transactional and litigation. So pretty full service. But and I've been real fortunate. We have 650 lawyers and about 1,300 individuals total. Wow. And it's in 22 offices. And so some of it about trying to lead is I love people, and the thing I'm most excited about is our people, and I love talking to our people and being out and being with our people. And so some of it is, though, being across the geography. It's how do you build that connection, build that relationship, build the buy-in on vision. So we really are pretty intentional about making sure that I'm getting out, going to offices, having town halls, whether they're virtual, have feedback loops, and really just build that connection and those relationships. Our COO is in Johnson City, Tennessee. Wow. And when we came out of COVID, we had not been able to visit offices for about a year and a half. So we decided that we were going to do a road tour of all our offices, and we called it the Tim and Jennifer's Grateful for You tour, all about being grateful for what everyone did during COVID. And I'm not a fan of the Grateful Dead necessarily, but we did like a Grateful Dead theme with tie-dye. But we literally just getting out and walking with the people, walking the halls, being with people and listening to their concerns, listening to their feedback and acting on the feedback that makes sense. Yeah. So those are some things that I've tried to do to build those connections so people feel like they understand the vision of what we're trying to accomplish, why we're trying to accomplish it, why we're trying to get back to our clients and to our communities and helping everyone to grow and become a better leader every day. So that's some thoughts about that. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Tim. I mean, we're on episode 131. So we have over 100 people, including Tim and also other individuals that you can reach out to, get contact with. If you're starting out, you don't have to do this by yourself. You have a team of people and you have this Lead to Greatness community, this platform that you can rely on and actually reach out to real people to help you get your organization. Tim, I want you to talk about this because I think a lot of times leaders feel like they have to do this thing on their own, because you mentioned mentoring and coaching. People just think they have to do this thing on their own. And what I've learned, I never realized until I got into leadership, into this community, that the leadership community is so generous. Yeah. And I realized that, man, there's so many people all that waiting. I mean, you take them out to dinner, taking them out to lunch for a cup of coffee. They love to tell you their story and how they accomplished what they accomplished, and they would do it. Some would do it for free. Some would do it for a smile. I mean, whatever. But it's so many people just they just waiting on somebody to pour into, because somebody poured into them and they're paying it forward. I want you to touch on that, because I'm saying it right now, but I need some backup on this, because a lot of people don't think this exists, that you can really, that's people that's really waiting, for these moments.
Cedric, I could not agree more. One of my catchphrases, my own personal mantras, is be curious. I want to be curious about everything, because I feel like I'm not the smartest guy around, but I want to ask questions and I want to read and learn and then take what I learned and how it applies to me and our organization. So I would just encourage everyone, be curious. And I have been, I've been in this role 4 years, and I've been very surprised. I had a little bit of hesitancy about reaching out to people I knew who were CEOs or leading big teams or organizations, or even competitor firms, right? But as I did that, they realize that they're craving that kind of interaction as well.
Absolutely.
And so I'm learning from them and they like to learn from me, and we're all kind of walking through oftentimes we're walking through similar things, maybe
mm,
different industries, different cultures or whatever, but we can learn from each other, and that's how we can get better. I could not agree more, to reach out, build those connections. And of course, we all know everyone, the favorite topic for everyone is to talk about themselves. So
right.
if you get them there, what is that Disney movie, The Incredibles? They talk about, I got you monologuing. Just get with a great leader that you know, or that you even think and then and just ask questions. I mean, I think John Maxwell tells a story when he was a young leader. He actually sent $100 bill and a letter to 10 people and asked, like, leaders that he knew, and said, can I have 15 minutes or a half an hour of your time? And so, I mean, I'm not suggesting doing that. I don't need to get paid to talk to you. But I mean, I just mean, it's that idea. You just be curious and build those relationships. So
thank you. And speaking of that, I want to talk about, what advice would you give to someone who is new to a leadership role?
yeah, well, I think some of what we've talked about is important. It would be, talk to other leaders. When I was going all the way back to when I was now a mid-level lawyer, and I had a small team that I was now starting to lead for the first time, where I had to, I actually put on the calendar 30 minutes every week that we got together. We all were in the same office. It was easy to get around a conference room. But I invited people that I saw who were really good leaders around our firm to come and just say, how have you built your book of business? Or how have you built to this role that you're doing? What can we learn from you? And of course, they all loved it. Again, they get to talk about what they've done, learn from others, ask questions. To me, there are no dumb questions. Listen to more of these of Cedric's podcasts. I mean, but other podcasts, leadership. I mean, it's just listen to these ideas get poured into by others, and then again, it's making sure you're doing the self-care to have your downtime, because it can be really overwhelming if you now are stepping into a new leadership role and all eyes are on you. You just need to make sure you have that safe space too. But
yes, awesome. Napoleon Hill, in Think and Grow Rich, he talked about the mastermind group, and that's what you just brought up. I mean, it's something that leaders and success organizations been doing this for years. The Henry Fords and all these people came together and put their minds together instead of everybody trying to do things individually on their own.
Oh yeah.
I want to ask you, can you tell us about a leader who has been significantly influential in your life and how they impact your leadership style?
Oh, wow. That's a really great question. So, because I feel like some of the great leaders that I learned from are, either historical or that I've just read books, like, anything. But, well, certainly I'm going to go back to that first mentor I mentioned, the first lawyer who was pretty gruff and yelled at me, which is not an appropriate way to do all that. But as I said, as we grew, I think he learned from me that I saw. He became more intentional about understanding who I was and what drove me and what I was interested in and in my family. He became fiercely loyal to me once he saw that I was willing, that I took his advice, took his criticism and took it to heart. And then I began to really own my career and he became very loyal and was my biggest raving fan, introducing me to clients and things like that. And ultimately, I mean, it's an interesting dynamic, but ultimately when he passed away, his family asked me to speak at his funeral. So just the full circle of how that really came about is one person. And another mentor of mine when I was in law school, and I really, again, didn't know anything about law and what I was doing and really what did I want to do. I literally wandered into a Sunday school class of a church that was near the law school campus, and it was a young professionals class, and the person teaching it was a lawyer. And he was an entertainment lawyer who I actually love entertainment and music and all that stuff. Amazing. So I thought, this is fabulous. I love this. Yes. But what I saw in him, and he had a sole practice and he had a pretty cool client list, but he just led himself first and foremost. That's where I really learned this stuff about taking care of yourself and putting up barriers and boundaries of your time and what you're doing. But I also saw his confidence. He could get in front of a group of people, young professionals, and talk about things. I saw him with clients to really have the confidence of helping them in their negotiations. and really just the confidence in himself to have his own, he launched out on his own out of law school, and he built a very successful practice. He also had adopted his children, and we adopted our daughter. So, I mean, there was a lot of life mentorship that he gave to me. But so Randy Smith really meant a lot to me, and he recently passed away as well. So I guess maybe that's why he's on my mind. But he really did influence me as a leader. Wow. Unassuming leader, a very unassuming leader. You wouldn't know if you came up to him that he was representing some of the biggest names in music. But
Tim, those are a load of knowledge bombs. This is so great. This is amazing. You've given me I've already have the title of this podcast, Leading Yourself First. Leading yourself first. I mean, this is a great theme of this podcast, they're just really bringing out how to lead yourself first, because I believe, and Tim, I know you believe, you can't lead anyone else until you're first able to lead yourself. And that's man, right. This is so great. Tim, thank you.
Yeah.
What are some practical leadership growth tips, tools, advice? Man, you gave us a lot of them already. But if you still have some in your back pocket that you can share with the Lead to Greatness community to help us reach our greatest potential.
Well, thank you, Cedric. I really appreciate your kind words. I'd say two things. One, because you kind of touched on it about leading yourself, is one of the things that's interesting that now that I've been thinking a little bit about. I love what I'm doing. I really enjoy leading our firm, and we're doing great. And but I've been thinking, like, what's the 10 plus 10 years, right? Because I don't know that I want to keep doing it for 10 years. And so that really led to me figure out, how do I marry this idea of leadership and also giving back? And that led to this idea of something I'm starting to kind of build out called everybodyleads.org, the idea that we all are leaders. And this really goes back to your question about what do people know? Just realize you're a leader. You don't have a title, but you lead. If you're a receptionist, if you are a truck driver, you lead your area, you lead your family, you can lead in the community. And so my vision for the nonprofit that I'm trying to build and to try to have that legacy impact is really, to bring these ideas of basic leadership principles and the belief that you are a leader and you lead yourself first into underserved communities. And so that's really kind of what my next vision is, and building out like a training manual of some basic leadership principles. So that's one thing. And then I guess that's on my mind. And then the other thing, I guess, just encourage all your leaders and all your listeners that it's hard work. Know that there's other folks here that are pulling for you. And I like to think of the word courageous, and to be, have courage as a leader. And I come up with acronyms for everything, but I literally go through this in the morning too, that I want to have courage as I face this day. I need to be confident in myself. Not overconfident, not ego, but I'm confident in myself and what we're trying to accomplish. I need to be, out front. That's one thing that was a challenge for me as a leader, because sometimes I like to just be off on my own and not be on all the time. But when you're a leader, when you're in that role, you are out front. That's the U, unshakable. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to have challenges, but just keep pressing on, which leads to the R, the resilience, right? That we need to, have the setback, but then adapt from it. And what's the step I need to take to keep driving forward? And so that leads to the A, which is being adaptable. The G, the growth mindset. I mentioned that. We want to grow every day, because I think that's how we can help our other colleagues get ahead. And then finally, the very end, the thing that most is to be an encourager. And that's courage. But, like Cedric, you've been very much a big encouragement to me, just getting to know you on your podcast, because you are really pouring into leaders and helping us all be great. So anyway, that's just some couple thoughts, random thoughts.
Tim, those are a load of fireworks, knowledge bombs just going off. Oh man, you get the fireworks. Tim, this is great. This is so amazing. Tim, if someone wanted to connect with you and what you're doing, where should they go?
Yes, I am on LinkedIn with my name. And then also Baker Donelson is the firm. That's where you can find me on the website. Email is on there. And love to connect to you.
On behalf of the Lead to Greatness community, I want to thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us all.
Well, Cedric, thank you. You've added value to me today, and this has been great. It really filled me up. I'm ready to go. Conquer a mountain.
Let's go. We want to thank you for joining us today on the Lead to Greatness Greatness podcast. And if this is your first time, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button, hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of these amazing episodes. And if you're on iTunes, go ahead and rate the podcast and leave a review. That helps get the word out to great leaders and entrepreneurs like yourself. So we want to thank you for joining us today. So remember, if you help others reach their greatest potential, together we can change the world. Peace.